Martin Eden, a novel by Jack London. The story of a young working-class man of about 20 who was knocked about in the world and who sees the middle class, the upper classes of society, college-educated people as far, far above him. A young man who hopes to educate himself and to become a writer himself, a successful writer. And it's the story about how, by the end of the novel, he succeeds. He realizes his dream, only to realize that the people that he aspired to be like weren't worth the shoelaces on his shoes. It's the story of Martin Eden's rude awakening that all of the people in polite, genteel, middle-class society are nothing more than Philistines, are nothing more than hypocrites, are nothing more than pigs, are nothing more than insensitive dolts who only admire people who have money and who have a reputation and who have a position in the world. That's the story of Martin Eden. When in the beginning, as the novel begins, Martin Eden is absolutely astounded by the middle class, and he's extremely ashamed of his own working class origins. And so he makes Herculean efforts to educate himself, to read books in libraries, to learn how to write, to read philosophy, sociology, to immerse himself in the world of his betters so that he can be of their ilk and can perhaps one day become a successful artist. And by the end of the novel, as I say, he succeeds in what he set out to do, only to realize that these people are the dirt beneath his feet. Most of this novel, Martin Eden, is basically starving. He lives he takes abuse from everybody. He lives in a cubby hole. He's constantly starving, has to pawn his bicycle and his clothes, his possessions, just so he can have enough money to eat through most of this novel. He's misunderstood by everybody. Everybody that he tells, everybody thinks that writing is a good-for-nothing, a useless occupation, that people who want to do what Martin Eden is trying to do, write, are just lazy good-for-nothings, and they should get themselves a solid job. And what Martin Eden finds as a shock is that even the so-called educated, college-educated people that he rubs noses with throughout the novel, they feel the same way. They're just as much Philistines as the working class is. Martin Eden falls in love with a young woman, Ruth Morse, an upper-middle-class, college-educated woman of genteel background. He falls head over heels in love with her, feels that he is unworthy of her. And so that's part of the reason. I mean, Martin Eden basically has the soul of an artist. He's a very talented, extremely sensitive young man to begin with. But he is so in love with Ruth, this goddess. He puts her on a pedestal that she is the driving force behind which he studies so hard and seeks to educate himself and lift himself up by his own bootstraps and write, hopefully to become a successful artist and support her in the style to which he is accustomed. Well, like I say, he does this eventually, and even Ruth, who he begins to develop a relationship with, even he's always reading her his fledgling manuscripts, his poetry, his essays, his stories. And she's always saying to him, just like everybody else, well, my dear, it's very, very nice, it's beautiful, but can you sell it? She's only concerned about whether he can sell his work, as is everybody else there. So all of these refined, educated people that have been exposed to great literature and great ideas and philosophy, basically, he finds out that these people are pigs. They don't have any of the sensitivity that he has. So, and of course, as you can suspect, Martin Eden does finally succeed in what he set out to do, to become a celebrated author. And of course, then when he is one, then everybody pats him on the back. Nobody thinks he's a lazy good-for-nothing anymore. Everybody wants to get into his good graces. It's the usual story, the eternal story. When you're down, and when you're famous, everybody loves you. It's kind of a cliched idea, I suppose, but Jack London handles it in an absolutely brilliant way. He goes into the whole nuts and bolts of the artist, of a talented artist struggling to come into his own. And as I say, most of this novel, he takes an unbelievable amount of shit. If this novel is semi-autobiographical, then Jack London must have struggled enormously to get where he got. So that's kind of the plot of the novel. The book is, as I say, I was extremely bowled over by the artistry of this novel, by the style in which it is written, by the wealth of language in which it is written. In the course of telling this simple, eternal story, Jack London explores many aspects of life. He explores writing, the attempt to education. He explores socialism. He explores individualism. There are so many writers and philosophers that are included in this novel. Nietzsche, Kant, Herbert Spencer, Swinburne, Conrad. There are so many poets and authors. Jack London was not just a roughneck who wrote adventure stories. I found out in the course of reading Martin Eden that Jack London was an extremely educated, polished, well-read man. As is Martin Eden. As Martin Eden educates himself throughout the course of this novel, he really does educate himself. He has a wide grasp of many subjects. As the novel progresses, he realizes not that he is the intellectually inferior to the bourgeoisie, to his beloved Ruth and her family and her friends and associates. He comes to realize not that he is below them intellectually or that he is equal to them intellectually, but that he is far beyond them. That's what he discovers in the course of this novel. And as I say, everybody, until Martin Eden succeeds, until he makes it as a writer, through incredible, brutal effort, everybody just has nothing to say about him that's at all encouraging and good. They all just think he's a lazy good-for-nothing, including his girlfriend and her family and everybody, and his own family, everybody. So when he finally does achieve success, it's kind of a hollow victory for Martin Eden. He can't go back to his working class origins because he has educated himself. He's so much more aware of the world now than he was in the beginning of the novel, that he finds the working class to be dull, boring. There's no challenge intellectually for them in associating with the working class. He does occasionally fraternize with them at the end of the novel, just for nostalgia's sake, because at least the working class friends that he had actually liked him for himself, not for his literary achievements. But he's alienated himself from the working class. And at the same time, he discovers that he's so much more the intellectually superior of the middle class, the upper class, the bourgeoisie. He realizes their hypocrisy, their Philistinism. He's alienated from them as well. So he's all alone in life, and he becomes very, very bitter about it. Now, as I say, the thing that impressed me about this novel is this novel to me is a great, great work of literature. In telling this tale of Martin Eden, Jack London kind of talks about the whole sweep of life. As I say, there's a lot of philosophy in this novel. There's a lot of erudition in this novel that comes out. In a way, I just finished reading The Magic Mountain, and The Magic Mountain is certainly packed with all of the great profound themes. It's certainly packed with erudition. But I found that so was Martin Eden. And I felt that Martin Eden dealt with all of these great, profound themes and all the philosophical issues that Mann talks about in a much more direct, humble, simple way. When I read The Magic Mountain, you immediately feel as if you've been hit by a freight train of intellect. Thomas Mann makes it extremely clear that his novel is going to be a very intellectual one, a very philosophical one. You're going to be presented with the ideas about death and disease and what is the nature of organic life, and the constant conflict between the Enlightenment and anti-Enlightenment sentiment, socialism and individualism, progress versus reactionary sentiments towards the Enlightenment. What else? All sorts of the nature of time. From the very beginning of the novel, you're going to get all this stuff, and you do get it. When you read Martin Eden, you don't know what to expect when you read this. You kind of think at the beginning of this novel that it's just going to be a very, very straightforward, simple novel of a working class guy who makes good. That's what you're going to think at first. But as you begin to read this novel, the novel fans out. There's kind of a glow or an aura that begins to surround this novel. And you realize that it's much, much more than just that. It really does take in the whole sweep of contemporary culture. The ideas which are expressed in Martin Eden are extremely subtle, beautifully expressed. Jack London never writes for the masses. Jack London never stoops when he writes. Jack London seems to be writing in Martin Eden about the things that interest him passionately, and he doesn't say, no, this is going to be too subtle for the general reading public, I better tone it down or not include it. He never does that. He follows his thoughts, whether they're obvious or whether they're subtle. He follows them all the way through. And this, to me, is the mark of a true artist. Once again, I can only reiterate that this book, Martin Eden, to me is a great, great work of literature. And just based on this book, I don't know about any. I don't recall anything else by Jack London that I've read. This is a great artist. I mean, to me, this is a better book than The Magic Mountain is. There are some books you read, and they're good books. They're solid books. They're competently written. But then there are other books you read that are an event. Martin Eden is an event. It's like going to a concert, a piano concert, and you listen to somebody play the piano, play a piece or a bunch of pieces, classical music pieces, and they play all the right notes, and it's nice, and you can tell that they've studied, and they've been diligent, and they've done their churny piano exercises, and they stuck with it, and they're good, okay? And you go away from it having enjoyed yourself. And then you go to another kind of concert where a Horowitz or Rubinstein walk on the stage and they play. And you're in a whole different realm. It's an event. And it's not just a pleasant experience. It's an overpowering experience. That's the way I felt about Martin Eden. I think the only book in recent memory that I've read that affected me this way was Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. The Magic Mountain didn't do it for me. Crime and Punishment didn't do it for me. Even Moby Dick didn't do it for me. Although there are certain passages in Martin Eden that are so eloquent, so noble, so ethereal, that they remind me of Herman Melville. Now, Martin Eden is not just a simple adventure book at all. At all. And as I say, the book touches on everything. It touches on writing. It touches on how difficult it is to be a writer. It touches upon the people who judge writers, critics, editors. There's sections here about socialism. Martin Eden considers himself to be a reactionary individualist, not a socialist, even though everybody else, being stupid pigs, think he's a socialist. So there's a lot on political theory here. Obviously, Jack London has read, and Martin Eden has read Nietzsche carefully. He's a big fan of Herbert Spencer, Martin Eden. There's just a lot of erudition in this book. It's just that simple. So what can I say? I'm going to read more Jack London. Jack London died early. He died at age 40, and I think he drank himself to death. And he wrote a book, John Barleycorn, about drinking. I'm going to read that one. I would like to know why such a great artist was so self-destructive. And the only thing I can say about Martin Eden that kind of bothered me a little bit, well, I'm not going to talk about it because it'll be a spoiler. So let's just leave it at that. Martin Eden is not just, in my opinion, a good book. It is a great book. To me, it's on a par with Tess of the D'Urbervilles, if not greater. It's just a unique book. The sweep of this book is amazing. It begins in a humble way, a very straightforward way. And by the way, you don't have to be a writer or a fledgling writer or somebody who aspires to write to be totally intoxicated by this book. Okay, it's not just a book that would appeal to that sub market at all. It's a great book, and I wonder if you've read it. Thank you.